go ahead, just start reading. So you see, we are moving beyond just simple academic foundation of vocabulary, sentence structure, grammar. We're moving on into investigative and critical thinking type learning. And then that also then leads into a discussion. So getting students to converse, have a conversation in English, in full sentences about what they're doing, what they see, what they learn. And that's more valuable because it is in context. What they're learning and what they're and communicating is in context. It's not just abstract. You're looking at vocabulary, saying a sentence. So so that helps create a more natural and fluent conversation in students. We can even take it one step further. Students can then use what they've learned and present what they've learned to students. They can do it in an informal way, in just a discussion, or they can even do it in a more formal way through a presentation that they would have prepared maybe during these lessons, and then they would get up in front of the class and present what they did and what they learned.
Right, wow. So all those skills that students acquire in our course can help them in the future. How?
Well, obviously, if you continue this process of learning, over time, it will make students naturally curious. It will make them use the scientific method in all their learning. They'll be investigators. So that's extremely valuable when it comes to developing critical thinking. Okay, and students will automatically look and observe. They'll ask questions about what's going on, and then they'll try to find answers. And then from that, they will learn. That basic skill is fundamental in any future endeavor students have, from studying in high school, studying in international schools, studying or working in an international environment, or studying or working overseas. That skill is critical to being successful because it helps students be more adaptable and it helps students become more flexible in living.
So how long have you been working in education?
Well, I have been working in education since I pretty much graduated from university. So I got my degree in education. I have a teaching certificate from the United States. And pretty much since I graduated from university, I've been a teacher. I worked in public schools in America, and then I came to Vietnam and I worked at an international university for about 16 years, 7 of that as a lecturer in the Bachelor of Communications, and then the last 8 years in a project-based school.
So, do you apply project-based learning method to our course?
Yes and no. Project-based learning is a more advanced process of teaching. It requires students to have a bit of ability of critical thinking and have some ability to work independently and work in teams. Oftentimes, students that I get from directly from public schools who have maybe just a basic English level and have not spent much time in international environments, I can't start with project-based learning. That's too advanced. That I do start with investigative learning, like I said before. So taking something that maybe they already know and having them look at it. So as a demonstration or a short video or an image or a short reading, then I start with that automatically. So project-based is more for maybe intermediate, those who have the ability already to somewhat ask questions and somewhat be able to work independently.
So, besides English, which skills can students acquire in our course?
Well, when it comes to acquiring new skills, first they acquire English more fluently. Okay? So our goal is to get the students to be able to communicate in full sentences and be able to listen carefully to what others say and then be able to respond appropriately to what they heard. So that is one of the foundational basic skills we need students to be able to do. And we start that right off the bat. That's why I teach in full sentences. That's why we teach through investigation, so that that conversational type English is built and developed. As they get a bit more advanced in their learning, meaning just spent a few months with us, then we would start developing critical thinking skills, and that includes problem solving skills. So being able to look at a situation and analyze it, and then try to come up with a solution and then test that solution. They'll also be able to get some executive function skill. So it's important that students learn in a routine. And a routine is very important because it helps them then create routines in their own lives. And routines help students be able to plan and be flexible in their living. Obviously, we teach presentation skills, so that can be done more in conversational type presentations, so it's more informal, as well as more formal presentation skills, which includes speaking, which includes visual aids, how to correctly use visual aids, as well as how to effectively use nonverbal communication using body movement or body gestures to be more effective as a communicator. One of the main objectives of communicating is being able to persuade or convince others of your ideas. Whether that be just simply in conversation, that you're just talking about the weather, talking about daily life, to whether it's a more debatable type topic where you're trying to convince others of your opinion or what you believe. Right?
So now I know that students can use English in the real life conversations in academic setting, including personal lives and professional setting, right? So how about preparing for some exams such as IELTS exam?
Well, we don't really focus directly on test taking. I know it's very important, and a lot of parents think that's necessary, and I absolutely agree. If you're specifically needing to take a test and you want to do as best as you can, then taking a specific test course is very valuable. So that there is always a place for that. And we do understand the value and the importance of testing, because that's the most effective way of getting an understanding of someone's abilities, for overseas studies or for international school studies, or even job placement if in an international company. what a lot of those tests require is the student's ability to read and understand what is asked of them. Okay? If they can't understand the instructions or what is required of them, then they're never going to test well. So one of our jobs is to then get them to be able to read and understand or listen and understand what they need to do to be successful in the exam. So that has to do with, again, observing, okay, asking questions about, in the mind about what the test is asking from them, and then trying to analyze what that is, and then provide the appropriate responses.
Right.
So then again, and so that that type of learning develops critical thinking skills. Okay, so that helps students to understand what the test is asking for, and how to best answer the questions in the test.
So does critical thinking help them in speaking and writing skills?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of the speaking examiners ask questions about the world, and you need to have not background knowledge of that, which we try to provide a variety of different themes and topics, so that way you have knowledge about these topics, but also ask you to then maybe discuss the value of a topic, discuss the pros and the cons, discuss the long-term effect, the consequences. That's all critical thinking, is being able to do that. Same with reading. You'll need to analyze a text, and then interpret what the author is trying to say. Maybe you're having to look at and identify arguments, identify evidence, identify something and analyze whether or not something makes sense, is logical, and if that is a persuasive idea. Same with writing. Oftentimes, you're having to analyze a reading and then write about it, providing your own knowledge, providing your own ideas and opinions, and be convincing. Again, that's all things that we focus on and develop.
Right. So let me think about the questions.
You can look at your.
What are differences? Yes. So, what are differences between listening in text and listening for answers in the real life?
Well, I don't really know. Haven't really done a lot of speaking tests such as IELTS. We do them. We do assess students speaking, but we usually do that more informally, not so formally. All right, but usually testing for speaking is listening for very specific answers. Okay, so so maybe they're given a topic and they're asked to analyze it or discuss it, and they're looking for maybe what is it called? I don't remember. Anyway.
Okay, never mind. This question, I think, no, it's not. I just want to, distinguish between like basic listening skills that they learn in our, their schools or in English centers. And here you mentioned about listening to answer. You told me before in conversation we need listening skills, right? So all right. So how do you teach students listening skills in communication? It's hard.
That's difficult to say. I'm trying to think about how I do it.
So do you require students to speak 100% in English, and from what level?
Yes and no. I do believe immersion, like fully immersed in English, is the best approach in most cases. It does depend a bit on age. For little ones, such as 2 years old to 6 years old, there can be full immersion. There's no need for another language to be used. You can use just English, because children are learning new words all the time, whether it be in their native tongue or their native language, or whether that it be in English. So they can learn both of them at the same time, or they can learn just English. And for them, it's like learning a new word. There's no translating in their brain. It's automatically, oh, that's the word. That's the word for that item or that object or thing. Okay, that's the word for it, and they just learn it. For older kids, probably 6 and above, at the beginner level, there is some value in using Vietnamese or their native tongue, because it just moves it along much faster. So you can say what the word is in English, and then you can say what the word is in Vietnamese, or vice versa. That's valuable, because it just speeds up the learning. Okay, so because there could be a lot of confusion with just learning it only in English. So that just speeds up that. The problem with that is then that oftentimes students then translate in their head. And then when they translate in their head, it takes longer for them to then just naturally know the words and use the words in conversation than having to translate it. Most like a lot of adults, when they learn a new language, translate for a very long time. So I try to have them use their native language only for a short time, and then we try to immerse them. For me, if I'm teaching, because I don't know Vietnamese and I don't have a TA, then it's full immersion for me. I'm only using English for them, and I have to take it, and I have to use a lot of hand gestures and a lot of images and things like that to get them to understand the words. The students together, if they're like sitting together, they'll speak Vietnamese together. And sometimes I allow that because it just speeds it up, especially if there's confusion in what they're learning. Sometimes another student will tell them what it is in Vietnamese, and they'll be, oh, okay, and then they can answer the question. So sometimes it just, as I said, it just takes longer. Sometimes at the beginning, if you're only immersing them in one and then in English. But usually at a lower intermediate level, that's hopefully at the time when they should be using full immersion at that time. And you don't really need to be using translation or two languages to teach.
Yes. I think it's good already. I got enough information here. So, how does the program prepare students to use English effectively in international settings?
Well, as I said before, first of all, we work on using full sentences when we learn. So right off the bat, we're developing full conversations using full sentences. So we teach them sentence structure in the scientific type method learning. So they say things in full sentences, and then they have to listen to things in full sentences. That helps create conversation rather than just words. Okay, so as an example, maybe a student would talking about your favorite food, and I say, "What is your favorite food?" They just say, "Hamburger." Okay, again, that's not learning English. That's just learning a vocab word. So they have to say back, "My favorite food is hamburgers," and that helps them. And then I go, "Okay," and then we continue a conversation in full sentences like that.
No, sorry. I mean, international settings. So you used to work in like academic university before something, right? So well,
that's important. When you're working in an international setting, you can't work in just words. You have to work in full conversations. Okay, and the main reason why in an international setting, in most cases I know, communicating is mainly used for convincing. People are expressing, saying their ideas, their opinions, and they're trying to get others to hear it and to agree. Okay? As well as you as the listener. You're listening to others give their opinions, their ideas, and then you're trying to they're trying to convince you, and then you're trying to then respond with your opinions, whether if they were different or even if they're the same. That is usually how most international settings work. It's conversing about people's ideas and trying to convince them of your idea and vice versa. So that's in an international setting, that's mainly what you're doing, especially in the workplace. In academia, most subjects that you're learning, students are learning, is that they're learning something new, and then they're asked to analyze it and develop an idea, an opinion about it, and then convince others of your opinion. So that is constantly at a level you don't really notice, but that's actually what's happening in most conversations in international settings.
What about representing skills and debating skills?
Oh, well, as I said, as you're conversing with one another, having a conversation about your opinion and listening to their opinion and agreeing or disagreeing and then responding to what they say, that is debating. Okay, so it's just done at a very informal level. There is like debate structure, and that is important, and that actually is used all the time. It's someone listening while another one speaks, then the other one speaks while the other one listens, and maybe provides their own opinions or provides an alternative idea or provides a direct counter argument or counter to what that person's opinion is. Yes, I understand what you're saying, I disagree, and this is why. So the direct conflict to their opinion and their ideas. So that debating is happening all the time. It happens in conversation when you're sitting at a coffee shop talking to people, just talking with your friends about things, right? What do you want to do for lunch? Right? There's a mini debate right there. In presentations, that's obviously most ways for teachers or lecturers to assess what you've learned. It's either done in two ways. One, in writing, and you're trying to persuade them of what you learned, or presenting what you've learned. Right? So presentation skills are one of the two main ways of how you will be assessed in an international school environment. Okay? In the workplace, presentations are often used when you're trying to present an idea to a large group of people. If it's just to a few people, that presentation becomes kind of informal. Oftentimes you still prepare an outline, you still prepare maybe some some images or some ideas to help illustrate or reinforce what your ideas are. In more formal, say you're presenting to a group of people, or you're presenting to maybe clients or your boss, someone maybe that you're trying to specifically persuade, then formal presentation skills are used, and that often includes visual aids, PowerPoints, stuff like that.
Can you pronounce it word for me?
Argumentative.
Argumentative. All right. Argumentative.
Argumentative.
So now I understand why IELTS writing requires argumentative discussion. Yes. Is it about to prepare students to study abroad as well as to work in international companies?
Yes.
Right.
And argumentative skills are one of the most important skills that you will use in international school or international work setting. That's how. That's the whole point of academia and work, is you're trying to use effective argumentative skills to present your idea and to convince others or persuade others to believe what you think.
Right. So, last question. What truly sets our academic approach apart?
Sorry again?
Sorry. What truly sets our academic approach apart from traditional English language standards in the market now?
As I've talked about a few times, we use an investigative learning approach that asks students to discuss in full sentences, to ask questions, that's investigating, and then to test or to learn whether or not their questions are, well, okay, I didn't say that right. So our approach is different mainly as it is an investigative learning approach. We ask students to observe. That is a very important skill. So that's observing with the eyes and with the ears. We ask students to ask questions. That's developing critical thinking skills. We ask students to predict or to guess what might happen or why something happens. That is a problem solving and a risk-taking skill that are very valuable in international settings. And we then ask students to then test or investigate their learning, their own learning. We're not just simply giving them topics to read or having them listen and then respond with what they hear, as in finding information from what we hear. We ask them to investigate what they're learning and to develop their own ideas about what they learned, what they tested, and then convince others that of what they learned.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Take
so
a look
much.
at it. Yeah, take a look at it this weekend.